were in the community leadership program forward. And from the same time, let's say this was 2000 to 2005. So from 2000 to 2005, we're going to ask you the same questions about projects you're involved in, about skills you've developed, about capacity. I mean, there's a, I think in here, I don't know, we'll have to look. I don't know if they've got all the questions that they asked. There might be in the back. But they asked some serious questions, and they asked these people the same questions. And then they compared the two to say, so what's different or what's alike? And it's actually quite interesting because in some of the areas, these folks almost did better than the leadership. And so it's kind of interesting because they went through and they did this statistical analysis of all the people and figured it out. And I'd have to go back. It's been a bit since I've read these results, and it's actually been published in a number of different articles because there was a huge team and they all took pieces of the analysis and then printed it about it. But some of the things that they found were that, first of all, so who did it affect the most? And this is kind of self-explanatory, but people that had lower education levels, lower experience with the leadership program, gained a lot from the leadership program. People that basically they hadn't had opportunities for leadership development until then. People that are younger, people that are new to the community, because they're forming networks and that they didn't know the people before. And so the program helped them start to connect with others in the community. People that were older, people that had lived in the community all their lives, I saw Evan again, big deal, I already knew him. I mean, they just didn't get as much out of the program. So it started to detail, so who gains the most from leadership programs? It also looked at attitudes, though, and some of these folks they rated themselves as pretty high going into it, saying, yeah, I've got good leadership skills. And some of them actually said, yeah, I've got more leadership skills now, 5 years later, than I did before. So in that case, it didn't have like a huge, it wasn't a slam dunk, because a lot of the people that weren't involved in the leadership program also felt like just life experiences in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I wouldn't really question like it was a good thing or against that. I would just question how they can like claim that it was positive. There's so many variables I feel like that come into it. They can just throw out any findings they had.
Well, that's what all this fun is. It's just the statistics is that they started finding the correlation between all the data that they dumped together and sorted it through. There were statistically significant differences in the answers of all the people that went through the leadership program from those that didn't. And I mean, so that's what these reports are. What did it tell us when we look back through the data? And so as you look at in chapter 2, where they're giving the post-program, pre-program, personal growth, commitment to their community, shared future, civic engagement, they're basically saying that the people that have gone through this program rated themselves as having better understanding in the community, they participated more after the program in community projects. They took an active role in leadership in more community projects than those that had. And that's where they're trying to start to say, yeah, community leadership programs do make a difference over not having them. So I don't know how this will kind of play out with leadership in Chester Clark County when we go to work with them, but it may, because what I'm hoping you walk out of this class with is an understanding that community leadership development can, and according to this study, does make a difference, or can make a difference. Not all of them do, because not all the community leadership programs are the same. mean, that was a challenge here, is that some of them, they weren't all the same program. They had different goals, they had different outcomes. So it makes this kind of study really challenging. And that's why they relied so much on the statistics, is that they said, we're going to do a big enough sample study across 5 states. We're going to throw it all together and see if statistically, if we can tell a difference between those communities that are doing leadership development versus those that aren't. So question. How does trust, networking, social capital, and human capital for facilitating civic engagement and building social cohesion? I mean, if those, sorry, that was a question. If these are the important elements for leadership, how does community leadership development produce or affect change in those elements? This is the question on the bottom of page 93. Those elements are trust, networking, social capital, and human capital. So just thinking about that, even without having to look at a book, you could maybe say, if those are important elements for leadership, how would a community leadership development produce or affect change in trust, networking, social capital, or human capital?
Really ties back into, the whole concept of spiraling out these things working together in cohesion, right? Gain force and gain momentum.
Yeah.
When you go through an experience together, so those people taking this program together, they're building relationships, which is social capital, which and comes with networking. And usually when you're in a relationship with somebody, you earn their trust, and I mean, I guess all of that kind of.
Have you ever had a situation where you've gone through an experience with somebody and it didn't build cohesion or trust?
Yes.
You learn to weed them out.
What's that?
I've never been in an experience where everybody I've not liked. But I
Yeah.
have been in situations where there has been people in the group that I could definitely do without.
So, throwing people together for a period or for a class doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the outcome of building trust. So what do you do to build trust?
Build trust, build emotional intelligence.
How do you do that?
I think showing worth in like, I know that there's people in my life who I don't really want to be friends with because I don't, like, personality-wise, but I value them for other reasons. Like, for instance, the president of our campus ministry, he and I are not best friends, but we value the fact that I'm good at some things, he is good at very different things, and together we make it work.
Right.
So I think that's a trust factor. Even if we're not BFFs, like, I trust him to do what he does well. He
Right.
trusts me to do what I do well, and we carry on. So,
There are a couple of layers here. So, okay, so this is the drilling down and spiraling up in a different context, okay? So, that's a terrible marker. The question is, see if this works. Trust, networking, social capital, and human capital. Oh, it works. Trust, networking, social, and human capital. So, what did you just say? To build trust, what do you do?
I said something on the lines of finding value in the other community members.
What do you do if you're a head of a group or a class and you're trying to help them find value in each other? How do you do that?
Make connections between, I don't know, I guess I'm thinking like if you're in a class and the professor is like, all right, you're gonna be in a group project, find people, or like if you're a good writer, find somebody who's good at videos, because you're gonna have to do both, that kind of thing. So, and that is networking. So it kind of just links down. I
Okay?
think you find value by understanding strengths and weaknesses of your.
And maybe like a skills assessment, so you figure out what you have and what they're really good at, what they feel comfortable doing.
That's a good start. Okay, so skills assessment, and then how do you build that back into trust?
Find the role that they feel comfortable in, and I wouldn't say assign, but maybe, like if you're on a committee and somebody's really good at being taking notes,
Okay,
encourage
so-
that person to be the note taker.
Share skills maybe, or yeah, so that's why, I mean, that's part of why a lot of the first step of leadership development, they say, what do you learn about? Often in leadership programs, what's the first thing that gets covered?
Apparently you missed it.
Oh, come on, guys. Yeah. What have you, well, maybe you haven't been through a leadership program. I mean, other than classes. So a lot of times, core is they say, first we look at self, right? We have to understand ourselves. We do a self-assessment. We understand our own leadership skills. We understand our attitudes. We understand our temperament. We understand. So you go through these processes of self-assessment and figuring out kind of your leadership capacity or what your skills are and how you, it goes from self to what?
I guess teams or
Yeah. Okay, so personal to interpersonal. SONAL. So basically it says, okay, we're gonna learn about your skills, your attitudes, your capacities, what it is that you bring to the team, and then we're gonna start connecting you to help you figure out how do you work with this team, how do you work with others, how do we do that well, how do we communicate effectively with each other, how do we trust each other, how do we share responsibilities, how do we address conflict. Those aren't just things that you do individually, but you have to have those skills. You have to understand yourself. What are your hot buttons? I mean, and how do you manage yourself so that others aren't always pushing your hot buttons? How do you start to understand yourself well enough that you can know areas where you need courage, you know areas that you need to communicate more effectively, you know areas of how you communicate and how you feel and how you start to then understand how others feel or how others perceive the world. And then you start to try to value that and work together in groups. So there is it's kind of the core, and then we're building out. Then once you get beyond working as a team, then what's the next step? Is there a next step? I mean, that's what they're talking about with mobilizing folks is that you're starting to get them in context with each other and working well together. But what might you look at on the next level?
Networking.
Yeah, it could be networking, or it could be,
Community outreach.
yeah, so here's the key, is that actually he's saying, or they're saying, the authors are saying, okay, so these are kind of core. You can get a group, this is my leadership group, and I have them all focused inside and they're trusting each other. They can work so well together. Well, that's awesome. But they may not create a big community impact if they don't know how to network and connect. And so what the authors are saying, I say he, it's a mixed group of folks, is that we give them a community framework and a context of how they need to start working. We start connecting them with leaders in different areas within the community. And so while you've got a core group that has high trust, we're also building those kind of networking skills. And an ability to understand the context and systems of how does money go from here to there? How does the environment get built? How do things work? What's the education system? What's the healthcare system? And so not only are you giving them those skills to work effectively together, but you're giving them a context of the systems within which they're going to work. Not just the systems, but the people that they're going to be working with. So to me, I mean, this is awesome. But it's, you know, you can form a huge core group that has great trust. So I used to do a whole bunch of trust building, group building. High ropes course kind of facilitation stuff, right? High adventure, great, awesome, it's very cool. So you get a group that now communicates effectively. Belay on, all right. They trust each other, trust fall. I mean, man, I know you'll catch me. I trust my life with you. I'm gonna jump off the pamper pole, you got the rope. If I miss, it's you that's holding me up. I mean, my life is in your hands, right? So you get a group and they're high functioning, they're high trust, they're high everything, right? And then we're walking back from the challenge course where everybody loves each other and you've got this huge built community where everybody's awesome. And somebody says, hey, you know, I saw Dakota with your girlfriend last night. It's like, what? All of a sudden, this trust that you've built just rocks out, right? I mean, or maybe I trust him, but Dakota gets like all defensive. So even though you can build high levels within a group of communication, cohesion, it can break down immediately. It's not static. So that's the other thing that's difficult about measuring the impact of leadership development programs, is that you can have that core group, that cadre that has high trust, high communication. They're working. They're just awesome. And life intervenes, and all of a sudden that all gets eroded. So part of the challenge with leadership development, with team building and with group building is that it's not static. It's not a one-time event. Life changes. Relationships change. People get married. People get busy. People have their priorities change. They have children. Whatever the case might be, the group cohesion that you create is changing. And so the other